Erica Kirk gets caught lying again. When will it stop? First, there's got to be some backstory so this starts making sense. Ex-military whistleblower who Candace had on her show and claims to have seen Erica Kirk on Fort Huachuca military base on September 8th. Candace has an interview up on her YouTube channel. If you want to go look, it's episode 282. They do a lot of sketchy things on this military base. There are a lot of underground and secret things that go on there. And when I say underground, they have had reports of tunnels and ex-soldiers having worked on that base reporting tunnels and saying that, and this is alleged, that is how they ship in heroin and all sorts of things from Mexico right through the border, and the military is in on it as well as above the military. But again, that's all a legend. That's just what people are saying. Now, am I saying that what this guy says is true? Did he really see Erica Kirk on the 8th of September? No, that's not what I'm saying. But they tried to cover their tracks and prove that they weren't there as far as the TPUSA team, and they completely outed themselves. And that's the problem. Brian Harpole is Turning Point USA's head of security, and he provided some receipts on his flight logs that day, even though no one asked. This is the same head of security who massively failed on the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Yeah, he didn't stop that from happening, but okay. I don't want to get too involved with him specifically because I want to get to Erica Kirk lying, but I do want to point out that these tickets that the head of security for TPUSA provided could easily be manipulated in Canva or on Photoshop, or even if you were premeditating something, you would buy these tickets as an alibi and not even use them. But he says that he was in a completely different city voting on things all day, so he said that this is proof of him not being at Fort Huachuca with Erica Kirk on the 8th, that there's no way he could have possibly been there with her. It seems like he's trying to provide clarity for everyone, but if you look at the times of these flights and where Dallas is in relation to Fort Huachuca, you'll actually see that he could have definitely been at Fort Huachuca when Erica Kirk was. It seems like he's trying to provide clarity by giving us these receipts, but actually he arrived in Dallas on September 8th in the early morning, according to these tickets. And his meeting wasn't until the next day, early morning, September 9th. So why would you, as a very busy person, go to Dallas September 8th in the early morning for a meeting that was on September 9th in the early morning? What was he doing in Dallas all day? He could have definitely gone to Fort Huachuca, not on a plane, but by other means of transportation, and then been back at his meeting. And by the way, he was not present at the roll calls twice. There were early roll calls at that meeting that he was not even present for. And he didn't mention that either. But he ended up catching his flights on the 9th in the afternoon back to Salt Lake City. So these tickets don't prove anything. If anything, it just left more room for doubt. But I want to get into Erica Kirk and how they really slipped up. There was a YouTuber live streaming who apparently had the personal numbers of Andrew Colvett from Turning Point USA, who was feeding this YouTuber why they have a connection or each other's personal phone numbers. I have no idea. You might want to look into that, and we'll talk about it in a second. But was feeding him things to say on the live stream on YouTube, trying to provide alibis for Erica Kirk to this YouTuber. What? In this live stream, Andrew Colvett is urging him to push a scripted narrative clearing her name. But even what the scripted narrative was didn't add up. And while this is being live streamed by this YouTuber, who's definitely not a Fed, who somehow has a connection to them and their personal phone numbers, Andrew Colvett says, "Oh, please don't let them know that I'm your source." We'll take a look at that right now.
Even necessarily pressuring them for an alibi, but he then proceeds to walk him through what Erica was doing on September 9th, and he's pretending like she doesn't even know what Fort Huachuca was, even though her mother has a contract with the Department of Defense and would have obviously had to have been familiar with Fort Huachuca, which is in her backyard, and in Turning Point USA's backyard as well.
Let's take a look at this screenshot that was being live streamed with this not a Fed random YouTuber that has direct access to Andrew Colvett from Turning Point USA that's trying to give Erica Kirk's alibi in a live to him, okay? So let's look at this. This is from September 9th. They're talking about September 9th. We're talking about September 8th. Why are they giving alibis for a date that we're not talking about or asking alibis for? That's what I'm talking about. These people, if they were in a court of law and they brought this in front of a judge and they were like, "Where were you on September 8th? 8th at 4 p.m. They're like, well, on September 9th at 2 p.m. I was here. What? Anyways, they are saying that Erica woke up next to Charlie on the 9th and woke him up from a nap and all of these things that aren't anything that we were asking for. But let's keep going.
It's just weird. It's a totally strange thing to say. Again, when you have an easy pathway to just reach out to me and say, hey, I saw you mention something on September 8th. Here's where Erica was. Notice that's Erica's hand. So that means Erica, the CEO of Turning Point USA, is directing the spokesperson of Turning Point USA, Andrew Colbert, to send her alibi.
So this is Erica Kirk herself directing her own Turning Point USA employee to send these to this random, not a fed YouTuber that has their direct contacts and is live streaming. And then they told him, don't share this specific thing while he had already live streamed it. So, because they knew that we would tear this apart. They knew that this was a story that needed to be carefully concocted in a different way. They didn't know that he was live streaming like this. They were trying to devise a story. And they were talking about the following day. Has nothing to do with the date in question on September 8th. This says September 9th. And this could easily be manipulated as well, but they didn't. And it says September 9th, which is not the date in question at all. Also, something that no one was talking about at the time, but I noticed, look at this child right here. There's a little girl and a little boy. They both look about the same age. If not the boy being a little bit older, maybe the same age, who knows? But this little boy looks like he's about 3-4 years old. But Erica's son is 1. This is her son back in May. So he's 1 year old. He's 1 year old, okay? A year and a half right now. Whose kids are these then? Not only did she provide an alibi on the wrong day, but she's also taking pictures of kids, and this is clearly not her 1 year old child, her 1 year old baby. It's not. Pretty convenient to be able to cover their faces. I mean, I understand not wanting to put your kids' faces online, absolutely, but this is very obviously not the body of a 1 year old. The crying with absolutely 0 tears on your face and then putting I mean, come on. They are lying. They're hiding things, and they're not even very good at lying, acting, and hiding things. You can draw on emotion to be somewhat believable. I mean, if you're going to spend time, even if you were going to be tasked as a handler for somebody, even if all of these conspiracies are true, you would have developed a relationship with that person, and you had their kids, supposedly, right? So you're going to develop a relationship with that person and at least a little bit of semblance of care, but know what your ultimate goal is, right? And I'm just saying this is all alleged. This is all conspiracy right now. I'm just saying I don't necessarily believe that she was his handler or anything like that, but I'm saying if any of those conspiracies are true, then she would have developed some sort of an emotion to them, and she would be able to draw on that emotion to do her acting. But at the end of the day, ultimately, this is not the actions or the emotions of someone who just lost their husband in this manner. It is just not. And then almost immediately hugging JD Vance like this and saying, no one can replace my husband, but I do see some similarities in JD. And then hugging him like this, that is a direct quote. I didn't change that quote at all. You all saw it on national television, nationally and internationally on social media. You saw her say that. That is not something that a grieving widow would say. And I would hope that a man out there listening to this right now would look at his wife and be like, dang, I hope that she doesn't act like that. That would be a fake wife. I would never want to die and have my wife say that about me or have her act this way after my death, like immediately after. Besides the fact that she lied about her ex-boyfriends, besides the fact that she lied about dating on reality TV and drinking, and we have all sorts of videos of her being drunk now that are out there. They can't even keep up with their own lies. And it's all the production, and no one's allowed to ask her questions because she wears a cross and is a grieving widow. So she's able to have people in Christianity not ask questions and be guilted out of asking questions and asking about things that don't add up because of that. It's the best manipulation tactic that you could even come up with. I also want to point out that when Erica Kirk was a pageant girl, she wasn't a pageant girl who had been doing it her entire life. She actually had never participated in a pageant before. She was asked via mail, which does happen sometimes, to participate in the pageant. And then she won Miss Arizona. So she wasn't a pageant girl. She just was asked by the organization that Trump owned to join and then ended up winning. That's a little strange, don't you think? And if you remember, her first meeting with Charlie actually started as a job interview, and then they went on a date. So, first of all, that is not very Christian. I mean, that's not very professional. Let's start there, but also not something I would expect from a highly self righteous group of Christians. But anyways, another weird thing. But I digress. A lot of things have just been really fishy. Look, if you had nothing to hide, you would be able to tell everybody where you were on a day in question, right? Even if you weren't doing anything, let's say you hunkered down in your own house and became a hermit for that entire day, you'd be able to know what you were doing if you really thought back. You might even be able to show emails that you sent, something, but they didn't show a single thing, and they didn't even address they didn't have any receipts for that day. All they did was send receipts for another day and what they were doing on another day. That just shows that you're hiding something. That shows that you're trying to mislead the public. They do this all the time. They did this in that CBS interview with Barry Weiss, where she said, I wasn't on an Egyptian plane. Why would I be on Egyptian planes? I was pregnant. Were you pregnant for the entire 4 years that the Egyptian planes were following you? And nobody ever said you were on Egyptian planes. They were saying that Egyptian planes were following you. Do you not want to know why those Egyptian planes are following you? You didn't even ask a question as to why they were following you. You just said, oh, I wasn't on them. I would want to know if Egyptian planes were following me, why they were following me. She hasn't even asked that question. It's because she knows why. She knows why. And she's trying to purposefully mislead the public to something else, to think another way. She's twisting things, and it's not working because we're like, we're not talking about you being on Egyptian planes. We're talking about them following you, and you weren't pregnant for 4 years. What are you saying, Erica? And what are you saying here? This is September 9th. Why are you talking about September 9th, Erica? We're talking about September 8th. Can you tell us what you were doing on September 8th? Why does this person say that he saw you on Fort Huachuca, which is a base that has a lot of sketchy stuff happen on it? And why were you dealing with the military? What's going on? Why can't your security person say that they weren't there and prove that? I mean, it's actually incredibly crazy that she is just twisting everything like this, and people are just eating it up. Like, hello? Anyways, let me know what you think about this. I am an ex-Washington, D.C. news reporter, and I got out of it because of how controlled the media is and how manipulated it is, but I've always been interested in it from a kid. That's why I went to college for it. And, now I'm kind of glad that I can do things like this. I consider this an act of patriotism. I don't consider it anything other than that. I think that we all need to be patriots right now because there are people that are trying to manipulate the system and take it down. Like I said in a previous video, she's trying to open up 50 Turning Point USAs a day in the schools. This is going to indoctrinate kids. And after 20 years, these kids are going to have been indoctrinated. Where is all this money coming from? I had somebody in my comments on my YouTube video, in the last video that I posted, saying, oh, these are self-funded clubs. Yeah, TPUSA is self-funding these clubs in these schools. The schools say, oh yeah, we self-fund our clubs. No, TPUSA is getting millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars from private donors, and they are opening up all of these chapters. That's them. And they're soon probably going to make it curriculum. They're also trying to control the historical narrative of actual history books right now. I don't think that anybody in the United States is really paying attention to that kind of stuff, especially the evangelicals, because she has a cross around her neck and I have a cross today, and I was wearing a little blazer earlier in this video, but that's because I was doing some skits about Erica Kirk. I have a blonde wig. It's actually pretty funny. But anyways, if you're paying attention, the God aspect is being completely manipulated by Turning Point USA, by Erica. They're using God as a way to get Christians to not answer questions. They're using her being a grieving widow as a way to get Christians to empathize and not ask questions and just allow these things to happen because it's for God. No, it's not. This is egregious. And we can't let them take over our country. We just can't. Anyways, that was a long rant. Again, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe now, and we'll talk in later videos. I guess that's it for today. I'll see you in another video. Bye, guys.